The fate of individuals, of nations, of the world, has often hung upon accident or upon decisions that, made the other way, would have substantially altered the course of human events.
Suppose fate had decreed that Leonardo da Vinci, who tried to invent a flying machine in the 15th century, had actually succeeded. Would we now be flying to the moon?
Suppose by a stroke of fate Napoleon had won at Waterloo. Would we now have a United States of Europe?
Yes, much depends upon a stroke of fate. And tonight we rewrite history as we present a dramatic conception of what might have happened
if, by a stroke of fate, the plot of the Earl of Essex to depose Queen Elizabeth I had succeeded.
Our story is historically true up to a certain point. The rest is imagination. The Earl of Essex, Queen Elizabeth I's favorite, plotted a number of times against his sovereign and her chief advisers. On February 25th, 1601, Essex was executed for high treason. If, however, one of his plots had succeeded, he very probably would have sent his bitter enemy, Sir Walter Raleigh, to England's grim jail for state prisoners, the Tower of London. Had this happened, it is possible that Walter Raleigh, a prolific writer, might have written an account of the Essex conspiracy. This is his account.
Waiting here in the Tower of London in this year 1601 for what will no doubt be my doom, I, Walter Raleigh, have resolved to set down the tragic story of the Earl of Essex and of Her Majesty Elizabeth, whom I will forever look on as my queen. I well remember the first coming to court of Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex and the Queen's own first cousin, twice removed. He was Fortune's child, tall and with a manly beauty, and the Queen loved such men. My Lord of Essex was in his 21st year. The Queen was 53.
And so, young cousin, welcome to our court. Indeed, you were a child when last we saw you.
It has ever been my dearest wish to be near your Majesty. And now that I have seen my sovereign again, I say that memory lies when it recalls her beauty.
What is this, sir?
I say memory lies, for it does not do justice to the radiance of her presence, the grace of her bearing, the incomparable loveliness of her face.
So young, and yet already so much the courtier.
If your Majesty doubts either my words or my devotion...
And so spirited. But enough of this. Tonight we dance and play at cards. Tomorrow we hunt. It is our pleasure, my Lord Essex, that you join us.
The Earl of Essex, I admit, quickly did supplant me in the Queen's affections. In short order, he became Master of the Horse, Knight of the Garter, and in 1593 a Councillor of State. In company with Sir Robert Cecil, her Associate Secretary of the Council, I sought to warn Her Majesty about Essex.
You may speak your mind, if you will, Sir Walter.
Please, Your Majesty, it grieves me much to speak so against any man, and especially one so dear...
And no long preambles, if you will. Please, to the point.
It is to advise you that my Lord of Essex is...
Yes?
He is dangerous, Your Majesty. Under pretense of affection for you, he grasps for power. He spreads his spies throughout the court.
Is this what you wish to say to us?
Robert Cecil will support me in this.
I have already spoken of this to our gracious sovereign.
And they say we women are jealous. Enough, I say, begone, and let us hear no more.
Indeed, Her Majesty was enamored of Essex, yet not completely deceived by him. In the year 1593, the office of Attorney General became vacant, and Essex sought this position for his friend Francis Bacon, against whom Her Majesty had set her heart.
If you love me, as you say, you'd grant this small request of mine.
But, Essex, it was Master Bacon who stopped the passage of the tax bill we need to carry on the war against Spain.
And I say the attorneyship for Francis is what I must have. And in that I will spend all my power, might, and authority to procure it for him.
This power, this authority, as you call it, you forget we have given it to you. We can as easily remove it.
But then, Your Majesty, permit me to remove myself from court.
We have not given you leave to go. Ah, Essex, why must we quarrel? I do not wish to quarrel with you.
Nor I with you. But I have promised that I would procure this position for Francis.
Then you must undo your promise. He is not fitted for the office as is Edward Coke.
And who has put forth Edward Coke? Robert Cecil and Raleigh. My enemies of your ear. You grant favors to my enemies and you deny them to me.
I deny you favors. I, who have given you honors beyond count, and over £100,000 in money to pay your mountain of debts. I have given. Besides, I have not yet decided on Edward Coke.
And Francis is my friend.
Yes, he is your friend, and that's the rub. Your stepfather, the Earl of Leicester, had so many of his friends about us, we found it hard to withstand him. If we have any more of your friends as advisers, through them you will rule us, and we will become a puppet queen. And we will not become a puppet queen.
Her Majesty waited a suitable time and then did appoint Edward Coke Attorney General. My Lord of Essex retired from court in anger. There was a reconciliation, more quarrels, more reconciliations, still more quarrels. Yet Essex remained the highest in Her Majesty's affections. In July of 1598, the Irish rose under the chieftainship of the rebel Earl of Tyrone, and Her Majesty was in the council chamber with Essex, the Secretary of the Council Robert Cecil, and others. She'd been trying to decide on the appointment of the Lord Deputy to put down the Irish rebellion. And that talk had become angry.
There! We have decided upon it.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Sir William Knollys will be our Lord Deputy to Ireland.
I shall not permit you to make that mistake.
We do not ask permission of anyone, my Lord of Essex. Be ruled. Sir William Knollys it shall be.
Oh.
You turn your back on us.
No! This is an outrage. I will not put up with being struck by anyone. I would not have borne it from your father, King Henry.
You dare draw your sword. Be gone and be hanged.
There were those who thought Her Majesty would have Essex sent to the Tower to be imprisoned or executed. But she did not. Essex retired to his house at Wanstead. And at court, Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth...
This Essex, whom we have raised from nothing, says he cannot ask for pardon. But, Cecil, we will yet break his pride.
Your Majesty, before his disgrace, the Earl grew daily in popular favor. He was such a favorite with the people that his popularity even began to...
See it, Cecil? Rival ours? Never.
But would it not be wise, now that he's been brought low, to...
Execute him?
Imprison him?
What manner of advice is this, Cecil? The people think more of him now than they did before. They believe he has been badly used. Imprison him, they will hate us for it.
I bow to your Majesty's wisdom. Yet I cannot fathom the reason for his lordship's popularity.
He is handsome. He is courageous. He is generous. And for the good that is in him, we will yet tame this thoroughbred.
The woeful misfortunes of our army in Ireland, defeated by the rebel Tyrone, provided the occasion for the reconciliation. Essex offered his services to the Queen, and she did accept them. But when in council there was discussion as to who would lead our forces against Tyrone, it was shown that the thoroughbred was still untamed.
We truly think that Lord Mountjoy should command.
I do oppose that, Your Majesty.
But why, my Lord of Essex? Mountjoy is an able man.
Mountjoy is my friend.
And you wish your friends to remain at court, my lord?
It is not that, Your Majesty. But Mountjoy is a scholar rather than a general.
My Lord of Essex, what man do you think should be appointed to put down Tyrone?
And I would say that the man sent into Ireland should be some prime man of the nobility, who is strong in power, honor, and wealth, in favor with military men, and who has before been general of an army.
My Lord, you seem to point the finger at yourself.
Oh, we do not think the Earl of Essex means himself.
Why not? Does Your Majesty not think I am capable of putting down this puny rebellion? Yes, I urge my claim to be commander of this army.
Very well. But you must attack Tyrone immediately. We will accept no excuse for failure.
When my Lord of Essex came to Ireland, instead of immediately attacking the rebel Tyrone in Ulster, against the Queen's advice, he spent 4 months in useless expeditions elsewhere. With dead, wounded, and desertions, his army of 16,000 had become but 4,000. Her Majesty wrote him letter after letter demanding action against Tyrone. One day, this hothead, angered at news he had received, madly confided in his 2 close friends and subordinates, Sir Christopher Blunt and the Earl of Southampton. It was in Dublin.
My Lord Southampton, I tell you I have just learned that the Queen has made Robert Cecil Master of the Wards, a position she denied me when I asked for it. Cecil. She rewards my enemies who wish us ill success of this mission, and she herself wishes us ill.
I'm sorry to hear it, my lord.
My patience is at an end. No longer can I wait here idly while Cecil and Raleigh plot my disgrace and my death. I propose to lead my army to Wales, where there are thousands who will follow me, and then to London.
But, my lord of Essex, what if Wales does not rise at your bidding?
And even if it does, the Queen is certain to resist you strongly. It means civil war.
But I must return home and face those who hate me before I'm ruined by them.
My lord, why not return to England with 300 competent men at your side? They are not enough to arouse suspicion, but if the Queen should try to imprison you, or worse, they would be able to effect a rescue. It will then be time enough to think of rousing the country.
I will consider that.
And so Essex sent to the rebel Tyrone and did make a truce with him, which was far from what the Queen desired, for she had written to Essex of Tyrone,
To trust this traitor upon oath is to trust the devil upon his religion.
The truce concluded, my Lord Essex, with his 300 competent men, crossed to England. Her Majesty at first did receive him kindly, but when she discovered that Essex had but few soldiers with him, she had him brought before a tribunal, where the Earl confessed to many misdemeanors. But the Queen was merciful. However, Essex, still thinking the Queen meant to do him evil, plotted against her and her counselors. On Michaelmas, in the year 1600, the Queen deprived the Earl of one of his main sources of revenue, the right to collect duties on the importing of sweet wines. And furious, he said,
The Queen, now that she is an old woman, is no less crooked and distorted in her mind than she is in body.
And now, believing that the Queen surely meant to ruin him, Essex and his fellow plotters felt it was time to act swiftly. And some of them met at Drury House, where lived the Earl of Southampton, Essex staying away to avoid suspicion.
Well, I heard one. My lords, gentlemen, we can wait no longer. It is now certain that Cecil has persuaded the Queen to imprison and execute the Earl of Essex.
My Lord Southampton, our soldiers from Ireland are in London. We can count on them rising against the council.
We must rouse the people of London for the Earl.
That is all planned and by the Earl. There are hundreds of his supporters throughout the city awaiting a sign. But first, we must take possession of the court and of the Queen.
Of Her Majesty?
Yes, it is the only way.
Once we have the Queen, London is bound to be ours.
Yes, and the rest of England with it.
At a signal, you and your parties will step between the guards and their weapons and take possession of the court. Then the Earl of Essex will come to Her Majesty and present his demands that she make the changes in the government we all desire and place him back in power.
And if the Queen refuses?
She will not. Now this the Earl does urge. If possible, let there be no bloodshed.
If drawing blood means the difference between success and failure, rather than go to the block, I will draw blood even from herself.
What means this, my lords? What treason is this?
It is not treason, Your Majesty. We are your loyal subjects.
Loyal subjects. And you dare to enter our presence with drawn swords?
No one has... Put up your swords, gentlemen.
My Lord of Essex, have you come here to murder us?
No, Your Majesty. To protect you.
To protect, in heaven's name, against what? What protection do we need?
Protection, Your Majesty, against evil counselors who are the true enemies of yourself and of England.
The only evil counselor we ever had, Essex, was you. Guard! Help! Guard!
Your shouts will be of no avail, Your Majesty. The court is in our hands.
Madmen. Do you know the penalty for treason? Have you never heard the screams of traitors drawn and quartered, suffering such agonies as hell itself would envy?
We knew what we did risk.
How long do you think you can hold the court? London will rise for us.
You are our hostage against that.
You would dare harm us?
We are sure that will not be necessary. And for the love I bear you.
Love. Don't befoul the word by using it. What a fool I was, Essex.
Your Majesty.
And now we who have not bowed to kings have been brought to this by you.
Your Majesty.
So you wish us to dismiss our ministers?
That will not be needed, Your Majesty. Cecil and the others who are not for us are already on their way to the Tower. And we have taken the Tower.
That insolence will be punished. All of you will suffer. Unless you return to your homes and let us think on whether we shall grant you mercy.
We know it is too late for that, Your Majesty.
All I ask of you is that henceforth you be advised by me.
You would be the king without a crown, and we your creature. We would rather die.
Let us not speak of dying, Your Majesty. Believe me, our plans do not lie in that direction.
Then what would you do? If we will not be advised by you, depose us?
I trust it will not come to that.
England will rise for us, not for you. Did you truly think we would be your puppet? Well, what are you going to do? Send us to the Tower?
You leave me no choice. Your Majesty?
Have you come here, Essex, to release your rightful sovereign? To pay obeisance to us? To beg for mercy?
I have come here to ask...
Forgiveness? To crawl before us? Lord Mountjoy has whipped your traitorous followers. You have fled the field, and Mountjoy, at the head of our loyal armies, will soon be in London.
I have not as yet met Mountjoy in the field. I meet him tomorrow. Nor do I think that I will be beaten.
Then why are you here, Essex? Is it to tell us that in 2 days we are to die? But why talk of dying? When tomorrow Mountjoy will whip you, we will be free, and then there will be a bloodletting.
Your Majesty, I have come to ask a favor of you.
You are pale, Essex. You tremble. Does your conscience bother you that you have let loose in England bloody civil war?
It is to stop such killing that I've come to you. If you will make me your chief minister, I will release you. And with your position once restored, there'll be no need of fighting.
Our position would not be restored if we must dance to your tune, and you know we would not dance to it long. Shall we tell you why you have come here?
To make you an offer of freedom.
So you say. But you know we would not take freedom on such terms. No. You have decided we must die or play your game, and you know we will not play it. Yet, to kill a queen is a great thing. And you, little man, draw back from doing it.
There will be bloody war as long as you're hostage, and there is hope of rescuing you.
Or as long as we are alive. Why not say that, too? But if you kill us, there will still be war. Those who love us will not love you for sending us to death.
One cannot always rule by love.
One can no longer rule England by fear. And do you not think, once we are dead, every nation in Europe will come down upon you? Do you not know every king will fear that as long as you succeed, he too may be deposed by a subject?
You are not deposed.
Death is a great deposer of monarchs. And death is what you wish for us.
I wish you to be free.
Then free us. But we will make no terms and no promises.
I would that it were otherwise.
Hypocrite. At least have courage enough to see yourself as you really are. We could admire a brave villain, but a cowardly one, never.
I, a coward?
And worse. You did plot against us again and again. We knew it, and yet we did forgive you for the love we bore you, and for the love you said you bore us.
I did love you once.
Liar. Liar. Your only love has been for power. You hunger for power as other men hunger for bread. And to gain it, you will do a deed so black, no Englishman will ever say the name of Essex without feeling shame that Essex, too, was an Englishman.
I go now to fight your Lord Mountjoy. If he wins, I will die on the field, and you are free.
If you win, we die on Tower Green, where died our mother Anne Boleyn. But if Mountjoy wins, and you die not on the field, you will go to the block.
Farewell.
Farewell? No compliments about my beauty, my loveliness? Then I see indeed I am no longer your queen.
So was beheaded on Tower Green Queen Elizabeth.
You have just heard the second episode in a new series, Stroke of Fate, in which we show how fateful decisions and accidents might have changed history. Now it is our pleasure to present our historical consultant on tonight's story, noted author of the books The Presidency, The New World, Lincoln, a picture story of his life, and writer of a drama about Elizabeth and Essex, Stefan Lorant.
As we all know, in reality, it was not Queen Elizabeth who was executed, but Essex. Now, let's speculate. If Essex had succeeded in his plot, how might that have changed history? He would have probably become the ruler of England, and James, King of Scotland, would have never followed Elizabeth on the throne. Essex was a hothead, an aggressive man. He would have probably attacked Spain, and since England needed gold, he would have tried to take from Philip III the Spanish possessions in the New World. If he had won, South America might have become English territory instead of Spanish. No English settlers would have come to the northern part of our continent, no pilgrims, no Puritans. And so there might be no United States today. Come to think of it, it is just as well that Essex was beheaded.
Thank you, Mr. Lorant. Won't you join us again next week on Stroke of Fate to hear what might have happened if
Alexander Hamilton had killed Aaron Burr in their famous duel.
In tonight's Stroke of Fate presentation, one of the theater's most distinguished actresses, Judith Evelyn, starred as Elizabeth. Featured were Karl Swenson as Essex, Alexander Scourby as Raleigh. Others in the cast, Horace Braham, Ian Martin, Ted Osborne, and Burford Hampden. Lionel Ricou speaking. Stroke of Fate is produced by Morton Lester Lewis, conceived and written by Mort Lewis. Directed by Fred Weihe. This is the NBC Radio Network.
Good evening. This is Gene Hamilton with some Sunday night news from NBC News in New York. Everyone seems to know it but the State Department, it being a reported meeting in Washington tomorrow between our Secretary of State and the Yugoslav ambassador to the United States. Yugoslav and London sources both say such a meeting is being arranged to talk about Trieste, but the State Department says it has no knowledge of a meeting. In Belgrade, leaves have been canceled for all Yugoslav military men. And Marshal Tito has warned he'll send troops into Trieste's Allied zone at the moment Italy sends in occupying forces. British and American troops are getting ready to pull out of the zone, but it's predicted the withdrawal will take 6 weeks. A few hours ago, a Norwegian tanker radioed from somewhere in the English Channel that she was sinking due to sabotage on board. Now that distress message has been canceled by another cryptic message, and there's still not much known about the story. The only added detail given was that the first message had said cooperation was impossible between the radio operator and the officers. We'll just have to wait until the ship makes port to find out what happened. A spokesman at the French Foreign Office in Paris has said that Prime Minister Churchill's insistence that France ratify the European Army Treaty might backfire. The spokesman apparently meant that the French National Assembly might get balky if it feels a foreign power is putting on too much pressure. The new United Nations Far East commander, General John Hull, is on the way to Korea from Tokyo. It's a mission aimed at starting the long-delayed explanations to anti-communist war prisoners. It's Hull's first trip to Korea since taking over the UN command from General Mark Clark. The United Nations now has received word by cable from both Red China and North Korea about the talks they want at Panmunjom on the time, the date, and the makeup of a Korean peace conference. 16 UN allies will meet in Washington tomorrow to decide whether they agree to the Panmunjom meeting. U.S. Ambassador George Allen has left his post in New Delhi on a trip to Korea. He wants to study all aspects of the Korean situation, he says. The ousted Prime Minister of British Guiana, Chedi Yagan, has accused Britain of inventing a communist plot as a smokescreen, he said, to cover up an attempt to throw out his country's constitution. He said the charge that he and his Progressive Party were plotting a communist coup in Guyana is just nonsense. A diplomatic informant in London said today it's true, as reported in Egypt yesterday, that there's a new snag in talks over the future defense of the Suez Canal zone. There are 3 or 4 snarls blocking agreement, the informant said, and one is Britain's insistence that she have the right, under certain circumstances, to reoccupy the Suez bases after her troops leave. It's been reported in St. Louis that federal and state prosecutors are ready to discredit the statement that Thomas John Marsh was the killer of young Bobby Greenlease.